Welcome to the Amy McManus Show. We're going to be speaking with three guests this morning. The first segment, we're going to be speaking with the late Terry Schiavo's brother, Bobby Schindler. And in the second segment, we'll be speaking with Horseheads resident Sarah Harvey. Here's what's going on with Sarah Harvey. She lives in Horseheads. The officials at Chemung County are not allowing her to visit her husband anymore. Gary Harvey is a patient at St. Joseph's Hospital in Elmira. He was injured several years ago. He fell down a staircase and had traumatic head injuries. And there's been an endless stream of controversies going on as the county basically took over as legal guardian of Gary. They also at one time were planning on taking his feeding tube and his hydration and starving him to death. Luckily, that did not happen at that time. Sarah had been granted supervised visitations, but most recently this past week, they have sent her a letter indicating she's not allowed to visit at all. So let's take this to Bobby. Bobby Schindler, who has become an advocate for people who need guardians and need their right to life validated, specifically those who perhaps have traumatic brain injury or are deemed to be in a quote-unquote vegetative. Welcome back to the Amy McManus Show. Returning to our subject of Sarah Harvey, I do have Sarah Harvey with us, as well as her paralegal friend, Tim Lehrman. Sarah, thanks for joining me this morning.
Hi.
And Tim Lehrman, who is a paralegal and has been assisting you this past year. Tim, thanks for joining the Amy McManus Show this morning.
Thank you, Amy.
It's an interesting week you've had. Sarah, tell us what sad news you got this past week.
Well, I have been submitting documents, tons of documents to the courthouse the past 2 weeks, and yet last night when I got home from work, I got an email from Brian Maggs.
Brian Maggs at the Department of County Law.
And it was sent to my spam folder, and attached was a letter that he written saying that he's restricted my visits because of my behavior. He said that it was truly disturbing that he has to see fit to arrange for supervised visits with individuals that were not approved by the county prior to my visit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it started with my pastor calling me on Sunday saying that he can't supervise me because his mother passed away. I told my paralegal friend that, you know, I can't visit my husband, and it was very traumatic for me not to see my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that he could visit, you know, he could supervise me. And so he called Miss Gould.
Rita Gould, the Department of Adult Protective Services.
I gave him the number and told him this is the person you need to contact if you want to visit my husband or if you want to volunteer to guard me. So he called her, and she didn't want to talk to him. She was rude to him, and she hung up on him.
So he never got an answer from her?
No, and he emailed her a couple of different times, and I guess she didn't respond to him at all. So, you know, it's business as usual. I went down to visit with my husband with Tim, and we visited with him. There was nobody said anything. We went to the room, and about 10 minutes before my visit ended, you know, the nurse came in and took some information from us, and the next day I get this letter from Brian Maggs saying that my visits are restricted.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, not the next day. The next day when I went down to visit with my pastor, Diane Cisco, the risk care management or whatever she does at St. Joseph Hospital, approached me at the elevator, and, you know, she was really hostile towards me and very upset, her body language and everything. She was frantic, and she said that I needed to tell Tim that he's not approved, and I said, no, I am not your messenger. I said, you can tell Mr. Lehrman yourself, and Rita Gould can tell Mr. Lehrman yourself, because, you know, that's not my job. That's your job.
Right.
And so she went storming off, and she said, well, I'm going to make sure that they get a copy of this letter. She gave me a letter saying that I have to wait in the waiting room until the sitter arrives before I can even go down to my husband's room, because my normal routine is going into the hospital and standing in front of my husband's doorway until my guard arrives.
Mm-hmm.
Then I go into the room with the guard. And when I went down there that day, they told me I had to go in the waiting room, and I'm like, no. I said, you put it in writing, and I'll go in the waiting room.
Right.
And so they closed the door to my husband's room, and so my husband's behind a closed door. You know, if he chokes or something happens, I mean, how are they going to know anything with the door being closed?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because he's not hooked up to a heart monitor or anything to give them an alarm that something's going on in his room. I mean, he could choke to death, and that's not even covered under the DNR.
Mm-hmm.
And so she comes into the room and asked me if there was a problem, because I took a picture of the closed door. And I said, well, yeah, you told me I had to go down in the waiting room. And I said, why? I said, it's not in writing or anything. And she says, well, that's the policy. And I'm like, well, you put it in writing. So she did the next day, and that's when she gave me the letter in writing saying that I can't stand across my husband's room. And she went on about overhearing people talking, private conversations, and what have you. So I went in and I wore earplugs. So that took care of that problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get home Thursday after work, and I get a letter from Brian Magg saying that it's me, where I haven't done anything.
Well, first they said you can't bring this paralegal in with you. Then they said you'll have to wait in the waiting room, and now they've restricted your visits entirely.
Yes.
Okay. Sarah, thanks for that information. I do want to switch over to your friend Tim Lehrman, who is a paralegal and has been assisting you this past year. Tim, thanks for joining the Amy McManus Show this morning.
Thank you, Amy.
So just a little background for people who don't recall last year, and Tim, you can correct me on any of this if I'm wrong. Sarah's husband, Gary Harvey, was at the Chemung County Nursing Home. Sarah did not believe he was receiving adequate care. It was not the kind of facility where someone should stay for very long. There were issues with payment, etc. So he was moved to St. Joseph's Hospital in Elmira, where his health continually declined despite Sarah's efforts to address these issues. And now, Tim, this is the most interesting part, as I spoke to you before the show. The county of Chemung now has guardianship over Gary. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Now, you and I had agreed that it seems like that's not possible.
Well, there's a provision in the New York mental hygiene guardianship statute that says that the county Department of Social Services cannot have guardianship over an individual unless the department itself filed the guardianship proceedings.
Mm-hmm. So that would be Department of Social Services.
Right. The Department of Social Services had to bring the guardianship proceeding under the social services provisions of the state law, and that's not the case in this instance. Sarah is the petitioner in this case, and therefore the county cannot have guardianship of him because they didn't bring the case.
Right, right.
It would work much the same way as a child welfare case.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If they want to remove a child from the home, the Department of Social Services files the action. There's an investigation. There's all kinds of due process considerations that take place in protecting the family and everybody's rights.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular case, there was no county Department of Social Service investigation into the circumstances of Gary Harvey.
Right.
It just so happens that they ended up with the guardianship by virtue of being nominated by Gary's court-appointed mental hygiene legal services attorney.
Mm-hmm. And that person, is it a woman?
No, it's a man.
Okay, but there's several lawyers involved in this, as you were saying, who they happen to all belong to the same law firm, correct?
Correct. Pamela Gee is the attorney for St. Joseph Hospital. Brian Maggs is the attorney for Chemung County. Don Thompson is the attorney for the court-appointed guardian, Chemung County Commissioner of the Department of Social Services.
Mm-hmm.
All three of those people work at the law firm of Davidson and O'Meara.
Hmm.